I'm glad to see so many people here for this kind of difficult topic, but very important topic. So we're going to introduce our panel as well as the people that have put this together. So as far as who put it together, the Village of Schaumburg maintains a Support Our Seniors Council, and we have community agencies, both for-profit and not-for-profit, that all serve seniors. And there's so many different services, so we figured we'd get them all together and introduce them. My name is Kathy Hinkleman. I work for the Village of Schaumburg. I'm the Nursing and Senior Services Supervisor, and I'm the chair, as well as Marina. We co-chair the committee. Marina, you want to come on up and introduce yourself? Yeah, so I'm the Nursing and Senior Services Supervisor, and Marina will introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marina Lvovich. I'm the Senior Services Coordinator. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces, and I will pass the mic because we have a lot of introductions to come.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Kelly Weber, and I'm with Ascension Illinois Behavioral Health, and I help people access mental health services. We're located over in Hoffman Estates at the Behavioral Health Hospital, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Jody.
Hi, I'm Jody Schultz. I'm the manager of the Senior Services Program at the Hoffman Estates Park District, also on the Village of Hoffman Estates Senior Commission. I see a lot of you from the prom last night. We had an awesome prom. Thanks for coming to that, and thanks for coming today.
Hello, my name is Elisa Owen. I am with Encore Memory Care of South Barrington. We are strictly a memory care only assisted living.
Hi, thank you. My name is Renee Tanner, and I'm with Family Home Health. I will be there to help you if you needed help with physical therapy, occupational therapy, or a nurse coming into your home. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Gibson with Home for Life Advantage. We specialize in accessibility in your home, which I kind of need right now. Anything from grab bars to elaborate lifts and ramps and those things. Thanks so much for coming today.
Hi everyone, I'm Frances Borgia. I'm the Assistant Director of Disability and Senior Services at the Township of Schaumburg. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Renee Anderson, Senior Services Coordinator at the library here. Wanted to just quickly point out that on October 4th, we're having a senior social. Check our calendar. Also, we're having a program in conjunction with the township on hearing aids. I believe that's October. It's the first Monday, I believe, in October, but they have a great partnership on hearing aids, so check out our calendar for that program.
Hi, I'm Daksha Sangavi. I worked at Kenneth Young Center for 23 years. Now I have started my private practice. I do the same thing because I'm passionate about all the programs I did, educational programs, individual counseling and consultation, as well as support groups. I specialize in dementia because if you have experienced anyone with dementia, you know how complex it can become, changing people's personality and behavior. I really help you understand what's going on and how you can help the person with dementia. Feel free to contact me if you need any help. And November is National Alzheimer's Month. Please let me know if you would like to schedule a presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Brass. I'm with Encore Village Schaumburg, the former Friendship Village. We are a rental community, senior community. We have every level of care, independent, assisted, memory care, and skilled nursing and rehab. I have more information on the table over there with our brochures. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Julie Gilpin. I'm with A Place for Mom. We're a senior living referral service. I'm here to help you find Encore and Encore Memory, two separate. Assisted living, memory care, independent living, senior apartments, or any sort of respite stay in an assisted living or independent. I left my material on the table also.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Bolger from the Kenneth Young Center in Elk Grove Village, and the services that we provide really are designed to keep people at home as long as possible. And in that capacity, I work with people who are providing care to a loved one, so caregivers, counseling, support groups. I disperse federal monies that caregivers can use to hire help to get a break. And we have financial assistance to purchase certain supplies, like say incontinence supplies or things like that. And I have materials on the table too.
Okay, so we're going to get this rolling. You guys going to introduce yourselves before you speak? Or do you want to do it now? Yeah, when you speak? Okay. All right, so we're going to get this rolling. We are recording this, the library is, and thank you so much for the library for hosting us. So since we're recording, and just to respect everybody, if you can turn your cell phones to silent, that would be great. And also the bathrooms are out the door and to the left, so they're pretty much right behind this clock here. And then hopefully everybody got a raffle ticket, because we do have some prizes to give away today. So that's a definite bonus, as well as the content that we're going to be having today. So the name of the presentation is Embracing Life's Final Chapter. And today we're going to talk about something that's often seen as a bit heavy, but it is actually one of the most meaningful things that we can do for ourselves and our loved ones. I want to start by acknowledging that talking about life's final journey can feel uncomfortable for many of us, but this journey is a natural part of life, one that when embraced allows us to reflect on the beauty of the time we've had and the legacy we leave behind. Instead of seeing it as an end, we can think of it as a transition, a moment to embrace our experiences, relationships, and the unique imprint we have left on this world. By approaching this journey with openness, we can find peace, meaning, and even gratitude for all that life has offered. Preparing for the end of life discussion, I promise it isn't going to be all doom and gloom. In fact, by planning ahead, we can take control of our future, find peace of mind, and even bring some relief to those closest to us. Think of it as organizing one last gift wrapped with care, thoughtfulness, and love. Okay, let's take it away.
So what we're going to do here today is we have a panel of experts in their field. Everyone's going to talk about kind of what their role is in the end of life journey. This is really personal for me because we're using my dad as a test subject. My dad, about 4 years ago, I had the privilege of working with my dad every day. He showed up to work one day and he just wasn't himself. Stubborn Italian guy, tried to get him to go to the doctors, he wouldn't do it. I see people nodding their heads, they know what it's like. Finally got him to go to the doctors for the following day. They sent him the next day for testing, more testing the following day, and that's when I got the call that he had a brain tumor. That's really where everything went crazy. And me, my dad, we're both funeral directors. We should have been more prepared. So this kind of just shows you, no matter who is up here, whatever they preach, there's always, people don't really do what they know in the back of their head that they need to prepare. So as soon as my dad got diagnosed, he had to go in for surgery. One of my first calls was to Dawn Davis with Comfort Keepers. It really just, everything kind of sent us in a spiral. I didn't know after surgery what condition he was going to be in. We knew that at the house with my mom, she needed help, dealing with him. So I am more than blessed to know Dawn and rely on her for her expertise. So I'm going to pass it along.
Thank you, Ross, and thank you to everyone. Excuse me. My name is Dawn Davis. I'm with Comfort Keepers. So we provide caregiving services. So the process of kind of getting that care started is exactly what Ross said. It started with a phone call. So he called me up and said, hey, this is the situation. We're going to need some help in the home. So that's how the process really begins. And then we would come to the home, we met with Ross and his family and whoever's part of Tony's care team, and we do an in-home assessment. So at that time, we really sit down with the family and talk about the individual goals of the patient and get a plan of care in place that is specific to the needs of that person. In this case, with Tony having a terminal disease, still being treated, still in treatment at that time, we were able to kind of put a plan in place and really make sure it was tailored to his needs. So a lot of times you'll hear from different healthcare professionals that you would need some home care help in the home. One thing I'd like to say that they might mention it as private duty, which is the same thing as home care. We are the non-medical piece of the continuity of care. So a couple things just to mention when you are looking for a caregiving company, it's really important that you make sure that they're licensed and bonded by the state of Illinois, because this will really ensure and give you peace of mind knowing that the company meets the state regulation standards and the quality of care for their staff and safety protocols are in place. Just make sure that they are licensed by the state. That's super important. Companies like mine are 24/7. So really it offers you all a flexible schedule and options in choosing the time that best suits your needs, whether it's day or night. Again, a very specific tailored plan of care to the individual. Most home care companies have a minimum hour per visit. Mine has a 4-hour minimum per visit, some vary, and you can expect to pay privately anywhere from $34 to $40 an hour. So what can caregivers do to help? Well, they can help with physical care, personal hygiene, they can help with bathing, dressing, toileting, feeding, helping prepare meals if the patient is still eating or on a liquid diet, very specific to them. Medication management reminders, we cannot dose medication. Oh, I'm sorry, is it better? Oh, it's too close, okay. Is that better? Oh, I'm sorry, okay. No problem, thank you for telling me. Yeah, you're welcome, sorry. So medication management reminders, transferring, positioning with mobility, assisting with moving to prevent bed sores if they're bed bound, and assisting in transferring from bed to chair or to car, whatever is necessary. We can monitor symptoms. We can report changes in pain, breathing, or other symptoms to the hospice team and family. We're there for emotional and psychological support to the family, providing comfort and maintaining a soothing environment for the family. The practical support of what we do is the household tasks. So light housekeeping, laundering, running errands, maybe taking to and from doctor's appointments if necessary. So how are our services paid? Well, that is private pay, like I mentioned. There's long-term care insurance, which covers our care. There are VA benefits that if they're qualified, you can get those services. Social services through Kenneth Young and Catholic Charities. And Comfort Keepers, my company does accept Medicaid. I did want to mention with the social service benefits through Kenneth Young, there's a community care program, there's a chore housekeeping program, and there's a caregiving respite program. And Kathleen Bolger, who was here today, is still here. I think she's in the back of the room. She'll be here to answer any questions about those programs because they are available to the community to assist and support with the financial burden. So, and last, I just wanted to say that caregivers are vital to providing not only physical care, but also emotional and practical support to the entire family during such an overwhelming time. Caregivers can help ease the burden by ensuring that the loved one's needs are met with dignity and compassion. They offer a sense of stability, guiding families through the challenges of end-of-life care while allowing the family to focus on spending meaningful time with their loved ones. And that's the most important part, that in Tony's case, we were able to really take care of him so that the family could there be just to love on him, and we could support that way. So I do have any information on the table as well. So thank you so much, and I'm going to pass it back to Ross.
Thank you. So after we had a plan in place of how my dad could get care, how my mom could get assistance and stuff like that, we knew it was a terminal illness. like I mentioned earlier, me and my dad had Morizzo Funeral Home. I had to figure out what's going on. You know, my mom was my dad's primary caretaker with the assistance of Dawn and everybody at Comfort Keepers. But, you know, life still goes on. I had to figure out everything from my mom for the business. My dad was not a secretive guy, but a secretive guy. You know what I mean? Like, every time I asked him, you know, like, let me take this over, he'd be like, yeah, we'll do that next month. Well, it's close to the end of the quarter. We'll do it next time. So I had to decipher a whole bunch of stuff. My next call too was to our family attorney. Our family attorney, my dad went to kindergarten with. So I thought, oh, this is all lined up. Again, we're funeral directors. We have all this stuff planned out. When I finally got a look at my parents' wills and trusts, I was going to my grandma. I was 38 years old, and these wills weren't updated from the time I was 5. I mean, looking at it, it was a house that we had 2 houses ago, you know? So I called up our attorney. I was like, I have no idea what the next steps are. And he's like, well, your dad didn't want to change anything because it was all set in place. I'm like, well, I don't think I need to go to my grandma anymore. She's been deceased for 10 years. So we had to kind of revamp everything. You know, we sat down, and again, fortunately, he was still living. He was still able to make some decisions on his own, basically with the assistance of us. So now I'm going to pass over Brandon, who's going to talk about all the legal and all the legal stuff that's way over my head.
All right, well, thank you, Ross. Yeah, my name is Brandon Ayers. I own a law firm called Legacy and Life Law Firm. I've been an estate planning attorney since 2013. So I want to talk about, you know, estate planning here in a nutshell. This could go on for a long time, so I want to respect your wishes, respect your time of everybody here. This will be the high overview, right? Just want to give you some key takeaways for your own estate plan, for your own life. You know that infinitely better than I do. So I want to start with the idea that everybody here has an estate plan. Whether you've done nothing to control it or not is the only real issue. State of Illinois has default rules for what happens when you haven't done anything, when you haven't put wills or trusts together, when you haven't put powers of attorney together. All those default rules are the plan that you have if you've decided not to do anything. Now, most of the time I can stop there and say, you know, how do you like the state's default rules for you? And without even knowing them, you know, you got that gut instinct. The truth is it can work out if everything goes all right. But that word if is there, right? I call those structural ifs. I don't like beams in my house being made out of the word if. I want to eliminate that word. So when you get to doing estate planning, there's a few key documents. There's powers of attorney, of which there's 2 kinds. I'll get into those. There's wills and there's trusts. That runs the gamut of most estate planning documents. So if we start with the power of attorney documents, I consider these to be the most important legal documents you can have, and they're not complex. You know, it's like some simple machines like a lever or a pulley. They're not complex, but you can still do some good work with them, right? You can build the pyramids with them. The power of attorney, not complex, crucially important. And there's 2 kinds. There's a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney. Now, with the financial power of attorney, it's called the power of attorney for property. You'll notice I call it the financial power of attorney because there's a misconception that, hey, this just deals with real estate. No, it's all your finances that takes. In that document, you name a trusted loved one who knows you to be able to make financial decisions for you while you're alive, but just need help. You just need help. So you have your spouse, you have your trusted kid, you have the nephew that's really great, whatever it might be. You have that person in place to be able to go to the bank and pay a property tax bill as you recover from a hip surgery, to be able to call up to your financial advisor and update beneficiaries on your retirement accounts, to handle all the ins and outs of just basic day-to-day keeping, or the big stuff like signing off a tax return or selling a house while you're alive, but you just, you know, again, maybe you had a hip surgery, you don't have to hobble down to closing. You have somebody you trust that can go to that closing for you. That's the financial power of attorney. So you can see how important that is. The state of Illinois has a default power of attorney with default rules that they give authority for people to, if you sign it, you give your loved one the ability to do. but the default rules fall short. So the number one thing for people who come into my office with a power of attorney signed that they're missing is a section of your power of attorney. It's the third paragraph. If you want to go home and look at your power of attorney, flip open to paragraph 3, and you'll know whether you have a good power of attorney or not. The third paragraph of a power of attorney is where you can add powers to the state's defaults. The first paragraph's the state default rules. Second paragraph, you can subtract from that. And the third paragraph, you get to add to that. Most of the time, those are blank. And that's a mistake. We add a lot to our power of attorneys, but the point is, like a good example, if you need to update, an example I gave you, update beneficiaries on a retirement account, an IRA that you have, or you need your agent to do it for you because you're in the hospital sick and you're worried about if you got the last grandkid, the 6-month-old in there. Did they get on that? We don't know. Let's call it my financial advisor. The default rules won't let that financial advisor follow that agent's instructions to update the powers of attorney. You need a specific thing to update beneficiaries on retirement accounts. You need that specific power. Otherwise, their back office is going to turn away the power of attorney. That's a clear example where you just, third paragraph, 2 sentences would fix a real problem. So the default power of attorney, if you know you have a good one, open to paragraph 3. If you have 5, 10, a dozen things listed there, you probably got a good one. If you have nothing, that's a bit of a red flag. So then we get to the healthcare power of attorney. Healthcare power of attorney is where you name people to make healthcare decisions for you while you're alive, but can't make them for yourself. So this document has a lot of things that go around it. You might have heard of a living will. You might have heard of a 5 wishes document that you have over there at the table. Those are all good things. And depending on the situation, you may need all of them. The healthcare power of attorney document specifically names the person who can make healthcare choices for you. So, I would name my wife. If I'm in a car accident, can't make decisions for myself, she can make decisions for me about whether we want to go forward with the treatment and try and get me up and running again. That's the healthcare power of attorney. Now, things like a living will is where you name what you want at the end of your life. That's a living will document. So you say, my wife's name is Gianna, another Italian. There's a couple of Italians around this area. I don't know if has anybody ever met an Italian. Her name's Gianna. So I'd say, Gianna, this is what I want. It comes to end of life decision. If I can recover, whatever you think that means for me, I trust you, then let's do this. And if I can't, let's not. If I have a dementia diagnosis and I'm 15 years into it, here's what I want if I get pneumonia or not. You can spell that out in the living will. I happen to draft my powers of attorney so it's all in one document, just for practical purposes, so it's a little easier. But if you have 2 independent ones, it doesn't make it bad. I just have to have 2 documents on file at the hospital. And then the 5 wishes document is a document where you name, hey, here's what I want when it comes to memorial services or, burial versus cremation, important things to say or not say at my service, things that are important to me, more on the practical side than the legal side. And that's, of course, an important document as well. But it's really important to have those down to meet your wishes, to not have them be the wishes that you had in 1994, but actually in 2024 is a big deal. Because that's what the healthcare power of attorney, in my experience in 10 years, it's not an issue of, my loved ones are going to do something because they want the insurance money, right? I'm sure that happens, but that hasn't crossed my desk. It's more of the hospitalist won't allow my family to make this choice because they're worried about the liability. So what you're doing with the healthcare power of attorney is you're basically waiving the liability for the hospital. They can rely on this document. You said, Brandon, you told us Gianna could make this choice. So we know we're not going to get a lawsuit at the end of it. And now they feel comfortable allowing a non-employee, a non-medical practitioner, making that choice and not having liability over their head. That's the real importance if we're talking very practically. So having the right person and the right choices on that is key. A PULSE document, you might know as a DNR. That's completely separate from the power of attorneys. They overlap though. DNR, do not resuscitate, right? So it generally has a couple sections about your heartbeat and your breathing. If those stop, whether you want them restarted or not. So that certainly overlaps with end-of-life decisions on a healthcare power of attorney, right? That certainly overlaps. But the healthcare power of attorney, you know, like for my dad example, he passed away in 2014. And his heart only stopped the one time. He had a DNR. And, you know, we didn't have to make a choice of whether to, you know, do the paddles or anything else. But at the end of his life, it was the end of his life. That stuff wouldn't have mattered. But the healthcare power of attorney mattered so that my mom could make decisions about, he had a form of cancer, and so he eventually had an infection. They said, listen, he's gonna be bedbound, so it's breathing. The lungs are gonna be the issue that you're eventually gonna run into. You're gonna have to make a choice on about a ventilator, is really what you're gonna have to make a choice. And this is before COVID, when any time on a ventilator was really, you know, at a certain age, you're probably never gonna come off it. It's gotten better in the last few years. But we knew he didn't want that. You know, his last motion was probably knocking off that pressurized mask. He hated those things. So it wasn't, intellectually, it wasn't a hard choice. Emotionally, not fun. But I didn't have to second guess my mom. You know, imagine what that would have been like for our relationship, right? He had all that down between his DNR and his healthcare power of attorney. So those are all the documents while you're alive. Then we get into after you're gone, wills and trusts. And people ask me, do I need a will? Do I need a trust? You know, we watched the Golden Girls. I was kind of raised on the classic TV between my parents and my grandparents. So I think of another show, Beverly Hillbillies, right? When you hear trust, you think of the people that, you know, shot some oil out of their land and moved off to Bel Air, right? That's not true, though. You can get value out of a trust if you own a house. That's really the threshold. Do you own a house? Because the house is going to kick you into probate unless it's really in a trust. It's usually when the second spouse passes away that's a probate issue. So that's really all it is to need value out of a trust. Now, if you don't care about probate, you can get away with a will, and that overrides the state's default rules of who gets what. That's an important thing, right? We talked about overriding the state's default rules. Your will does that. Your will says, hey, instead of the state's default rules, I want to make sure this person gets that and this person gets a different thing. But you'll still have the probate process. That's a very big misconception. People think, I don't have to worry about probate. I got a will. No, if you own a home, or if you have $100,000 of other stuff without beneficiaries on it, you're going through probate in the state of Illinois. So the will does nothing to override that. A will, essentially, the word probate is kind of the legal Latin translation for proving a will. So you prove a will through a probate process. It doesn't avoid probate. Then you get to the trust, which avoids probate. You can do a whole bunch of fancy things with trust, but essentially if you have that house, that's where you can start to get value out of it. Certainly if you have vulnerable loved ones, people who need a little bit of protection from just getting a check, you know, and letting some weakness, you know, ruin that, their life or the money. We can do with that with the trust. But that's the overarching divide between a will and a trust, is whether you care about avoiding a probate process or not. So that's more than enough time for all that, but that's the high overview of those important estate planning documents.
Thank you. So following in the continuum of care, you know, we knew my dad had good home care. We knew that we had all of his legal and financial stuff under wraps, you know, for the most part. But again, we knew that he was facing a terminal illness. As his care went down, we were in the hospital. The doctor wanted to put a feeding tube in him and wanted to put him in a rehab facility. This was during COVID, so we knew we only had a finite amount of time left with him. They wanted to put a feeding tube in. We didn't want any of that. You know, we wanted to bring him home so he could see his buddies and kind of, you know, have that closure with everybody. So we called in hospice. And now I'm gonna pass it off to Kelly.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Wilson, and I work for Family Home Health and Hospice. And I'm here just to discuss and touch on the topic of hospice. Like Ross, I recently lost an uncle last month. Unexpectedly, he was taken to the hospital and had bilateral pneumonia. And after he was diagnosed with that, shortly in the emergency room, we were told he's terminal cancer. So with that, it was a tough pill to swallow. We discussed options. There was no options. There was no removing this large mass in his abdomen. He begged them to remove it, and they said it just is not beneficial for you with the pneumonia and everything going on. So He wanted to go home. He made that decision. Please, just let me go home, be comfortable in my own bed. I know if that was me when I'm sick, I just want to be in my own bed. I don't want to be in a hospital. I want to be where I'm comfortable with my loved ones around me. So with that being said, we did take him home. We put him on hospice. And with hospice, you get a phenomenal team. You have a team with a nurse that comes and makes visits and can adjust medications if needed, whether it be for pain, agitation, or anxiety. But I call the hospice team the extended family because that's what we are. We are available 24/7. And I would have hated for my aunt to go home alone and to do this by herself because there is no way possible she would have managed this and followed through with his wishes. So with hospice, that also includes a home health aide to come out and help with bathing and dressing. That is completely different from private duty services. An aide will come out twice a week and provide bathing and dressing. We also have a social worker for not only the patient, but family support, because family is going to really need a lot of support during this difficult time. We also offer a chaplain. And with this service, it just depends on how the patient does. If they start having a decline, nursing will increase visits and will be more visits will be made with our team. But we do, like I said, we have an on-call 24-hour number that you can call. So if your loved one does not feel well or there's been another change in condition, we can send a nurse out right away to manage those symptoms and adjust that medication. Also, with hospice, it can be done in the home, it could be done in a nursing facility, it could be done in an assisted living, and it can also be done in a hospital. So if a patient is too ill to leave the hospital, too weak, and they feel that it's just not safe to transport the patient, they will stay on an inpatient unit in the hospital, and usually they will pass within a couple of days in the hospital. But with hospice, it does take two physicians to determine if a patient qualifies for hospice. Once we have that determination, the doctors have been very proactive lately. In the past, this was a really scary word, hospice, but after seeing this with my own family, it was a blessing, the way that this team just took over. And my aunt was able to relax more, able to feel relieved, because it was such a high anxiety thing to hear. But then once we got him home, everything fell into place. Hospice is not a contract. So you can start out and try it and see how you like it. And if you don't like it, you can cancel services. But hospice is when a patient is diagnosed and there is no more, there's no more treatments that they can do for your loved one. There's nothing more. So the hospital's going to say, there's nothing more we can do. We would recommend hospice care. And that is when we provide that extra team, whether it be in a home, in a nursing facility, wherever that may be. It is just extra eyes and ears checking after your loved one. We also provide equipment. Equipment is covered through hospice. Supplies like diapers, wipes, and chucks and gloves, those are all included, and as well as our team and medications. So we are just a full package, and we're also following families for a year after their loved one passes with our bereavement team. We have an excellent team, and we are there to support the ones that have been left behind. And when you're having a rough day, you reach out, and we have our bereavement team. We can have someone come out and sit with you. We've had someone come out and make pasta and sit and talk. And just in the end, the wife was laughing and enjoying her time. But it's hard to be alone in the end. And that's where hospice is such an amazing part of end of care life, because you do have an extended family. And we're always there for you 24/7. You're not alone when going through this. So, and this can be for any terminal illness, whether it be cancer, dementia, kidney disease, chronic heart failure, respiratory. We are there to help loved ones to be comfortable in whatever place they're discharged to, whether it be home, but we want to keep them comfortable. We do not speed up the death and dying process. We do not over-medicate. The goal is to keep them up and sitting up and talking and sharing memories with our loved ones. I was able to do that with my uncle when we brought him home. We were able to manage that pain where he was screaming in the hospital. We got him home. He was calmer. He was talking. He was telling stories. And we knew that these were stories that we would cherish forever because we knew he was going to be leaving us soon. But hospice is, the determination is the patient has less than 6 months to live. But that is not true with every patient. We have had patients on for 2 years. We've had patients who've graduated. So we've had patients get better and come off of hospice services. But I would definitely suggest that if you are just not sure, unsure, reach out to myself or someone in hospice. Would be happy to come and sit with you and the family, discuss everything. Hospice is a covered service. Almost every insurance covers it. So I just wanted to give you that information, and please feel free to reach out to me if needed. Thank you.
Thanks. Told you guys this was a fun topic, right? So she was talking about graduating from hospice. Unfortunately, my dad wasn't a graduate. So what's the next steps? The funeral. Again, we're funeral directors. I'm third generation. My dad was second generation. He worked with his brother his whole life. I knew exactly what he wanted. That's not usually the norm, you know. I knew my dad was so detailed when I was looking through his paperwork and finding the wills and stuff like that. He wrote his own obituary out. I had to put in my kids' names because, you know, didn't get that far, or he didn't update it, like he didn't update the will. But, you know, I knew exactly what he wanted. Again, usually not the case. So now I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie, who's going to talk about funerals, and then, yeah, you got it.
Okay. Thanks, Ross. Can you hear me okay? Okay. My name is Stephanie Kuzo-Panagos. I am over at Michael's Funeral Home, right down Roselle, actually. And I'm just here today to talk a little bit of high level, what to expect when you do need a funeral home. So what does that look like? So for any of you who are not familiar or have not had the experience of planning a funeral for a loved one, kind of what that looks like or what you would need. So just generally speaking, families that we serve are kind of falling into two categories when they're needing our services. Either, yep. This one's not on? All right.
We got it back up.
All right, there we go. Okay, how about now? Well, yeah, I can hear myself too. Okay, sorry about that. So just to kind of recap, so kind of when you would need funeral home services, and saying that families that we serve really fall into kind of two categories when it comes time that they need us, is either an at-need event, so somebody's passed away and you need us immediately, or a pre-need event. You'd like to come in and pre-plan or pre-arrange for funeral services, maybe sometime in the near future, or maybe it's years and years and years from now. So that's what we're there for. To kind of talk a little bit about the at-need situation, when somebody does pass away and you're needing to call on a funeral home, wherever your loved one is, we come to you. So of course, if hospice is involved, we would need that person to be pronounced, of course. So if hospice is involved, they would come and pronounce the person as deceased, and then we would be cleared to come and bring them into our care. In the event that the hospice is not involved, this has come up recently that I don't think many people know, that we would need to get the local authorities involved. We would need to contact the police and the fire department to come and get the medical examiner involved to pronounce that person as well before we're even allowed to come and retrieve them. So it's in the event that that happens and families come to us in need of services, we're there for you to take care of, get as much off your plate and do all the heavy lifting that you're needing time to grieve in that moment. So in terms of planning a funeral and who needs to come, and do I get the cookies, and where's the cemetery, which Mario will touch on too. We're there to help you every step of the way. And in terms of the time frame that it takes before like a funeral or a memorial happens, it is a short amount of time before all of that needs to be done. So I just want to touch on a little bit of what you would need to bring in the event that you are needing us. Some documentation would be good to have, would be like any birth certificates for parents' information, social security card, and do we have any US veterans in the room today? Or anybody, if you are caring for somebody who's a veteran, there are benefits that are available to US veterans that would only be accessible if you have your DD 214. So we actually, oh yeah, the form is a DD 214. It is a discharge documentation. And it's given to all vets at the time of their discharge, but that document alone would help you get access and make you eligible for all of those benefits. So just some things to kind of keep all together in a folder somewhere that your next of kin, your loved one, the person who's going to be in charge when you do pass away, where they can find it and locate those documents. So again, very high level information, but for the sake of time, I'll also pass it along. And then, of course, we're always here to answer questions at the end.
Thank you. Also, to kind of touch on funeral services too. Most people think of funerals as this doom and gloom, where you show up, you sit in the chair, and you kind of whisper. You know, my mom still does it. She's been around it for the past 40 years. That's really not how they are now. People like to have celebrations. They want to celebrate that person instead of just sit there and mourn. You know, a lot of times now families are dispersed. There might be a son in Florida, a son in New York, grandkids in California. It's really a time for everyone to come together and really celebrate that person. Kind of going off of my dad's stuff, I knew I was going to have a whole bunch of funeral directors staring at my every move, so I had to do something else, you know? So this was kind of the tail end of COVID. My dad loved hot dogs. Before he got his brain tumor, we fought every day about his diet and stuff. He had other issues and stuff, and I remember, you know, we had this whole long fight about start to eat healthy. I'll eat with you healthy. I'll try a salad. I don't care, you know? And then he was leaving and he goes, okay, Ross, I'm going to go out. I'm going to get some lunch. I'm like, okay, what are you getting? Hot dogs. And then I was like, Dad, you know, what have we just been talking about? I'm using different language now, but you know, like, what have we just been talking about for the past half hour? And he was like, fine, I'll get beef sandwiches. And I was like, sitting there, I was like, what? He goes, Ross, there's bread, there's meat, and there's green stuff. So at that point, you know, during his funeral, I knew I had to do something different. So I got a hot dog, a Vienna beef hot dog truck, you know, not a truck, but like the push carts, serving hot dogs in the coffee room, you know. At the cemetery, I got a vault that we put his picture, our family picture on it and stuff like that. Just something different, you know, something that breaks the monotony of probably a lot of the funerals you've been to, you know. So don't think of funerals as this doom and gloom. It's really a time to bring that person's personality up and kind of play the music they like, you know, eat the foods they like, or do anything of the sort. So now I'm going to pass it off to Kristen. Kristen's our pre-need specialist. So, you know, show of hands, who has kids here? Kids? Kids, no, not. So whoever has kids, I'm sure all your kids think identically. They never fight, just like mine and stuff like that, right? Okay. I just want to make sure my kids were no different than yours. So a lot of times when we meet with families at an at-need situation, there might be 5 kids in the family. This one doesn't like this one. This one hasn't talked to this one in a while. Whatever this one says, the other one's going to go against it. So kind of having your wishes thought out, written down, pre-funded, anything like that really can alleviate a lot of the fighting that can occur after death. I mean, being in the funeral industry, I'm sure you'll agree with me, people fight. It brings out the best in people and the worst in people. And it's always siblings who clash. And it's not even the siblings, a lot of times it's the spouses, you know. So after that fun, you know, transition, I'm gonna pass it all out to Kristen.
Okay. So my name is Kristen. I am the person that does the advanced funeral planning at Merzo Funeral Home and Cremation Services. I've been helping families since 1995 make their final wishes. And like Ross said, many of us have children, and it's very difficult when somebody's died and you're grieving, and now we don't remember mom's maiden name, and we think Jimmy makes more money, so Jimmy should have to pay for it, and Susie stayed at home and watched mom, and she wants to have the final say, and so on and so forth. So we really find that it's best for most families if they can get as much information down in advance. Whether that be, just like I said, getting some of that biographical information that's needed at time of need for a death certificate, or doing the whole 9 yards, planning your funeral from start to finish. The more you can do in advance, the easier it's going to be on your survivors. So my job is to sit down with all of you and go over this information. I try to make it as easy as possible. I love what I do. I'm very fortunate that I get to sit down with so many different people and hear their life stories and try to create a special moment for families when we're talking about death and dying. It's not the easiest thing to talk about. So we really do try to make it as easy on families when you do come and sit down with us. We do house calls, so I can also go to your home if that's more, if that's easier for you all. If some people don't like to get out, and some people certainly don't want to come to a funeral home to talk about death and dying. We also offer lunch and learn opportunities for people to come to our seminars just to kind of start talking and getting some education as to what you need to do at time of need. And then, of course, we've got Mario here who's going to talk to you all about the cemetery portion of it. I don't know if that sums it up enough for us all. We do have my card and Ross's card, at the table, and some leaflets, so if you want to take that with you, please do. And again, if you've got any questions, we're certainly here to answer questions afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, last but certainly not least is Mario. Mario's with Catholic Cemeteries. So around here, the big cemetery is St. Michael the Archangel, right across the street from Harper College. Kind of going, again, in the continuum of care of my dad's journey, they bought their cemetery property 30 years ago when my grandpa died. They bought, I think it was 10 graves at the time. I'm an only child, I don't know why they bought so many graves. But they did, and I always made the joke, I have my cemetery property. I probably got it for a Christmas gift when I was 11 years old, But a lot of people don't know what to do, and the cemetery portion of it is another expense. Unfortunately, these days, like funerals, nothing goes down in price, So to be kind of prepared for that, to know kind of what the different options are is really important. So I'm going to pass it over to Mario.
Thank you, Ross. My name is Mario Calderon. I have been with Catholic Cemeteries for the last 9 years. Prior to that, I was in finance and accounting, and I can tell you that I enjoy this part of my journey a lot better. There are two types of people that come to the cemetery: those who have an immediate need and those who are pre-planning. An immediate need is a family who has just lost a loved one. It may have just occurred a few hours ago. So when they come in to see us, the scenario is very emotional and very raw. The families really do not know what to expect from the cemeteries. They don't know what questions to ask. They do not know what the wishes of their loved one would have been. let alone they might not have even had that conversation with their loved one. The art of what I do is, as an advisor, is to provide resources and reassurance in a simple and thoughtful way. I want to educate my families so that the cemetery process is a lot smoother for them. This takes a lot of time, especially when these decisions need to be made. Cemetery services are a financial decision, no doubt about it. One of the questions that come into play is cost. It can be overwhelming. Keeping things simple is possible and helps the process go a lot smoother. Pre-planning, on the other hand, is two different scenarios that I'm going to present to you. The first scenario is a person that has been diagnosed with an illness, a terminal illness, or is in hospice, like Tony's journey. They have not completely acknowledged or completely embraced the fact that, yeah, this diagnosis is terminal and that they are going to be passing. There's still a lot of emotions around with this family, but yet these decisions need to be made. We need to decide if it's going to be full body burial, full body entombment, or cremation. If the funeral services have been prepared, and how that day is going to play out in the cemetery. The second scenario is if a family comes in and they are truly planning for the future. When they are truly planning for the future, this also can be very emotional. It is very hard for people to acknowledge that they are going to be passing and that, yeah, you know what, I do need to make these decisions. But one of the things that is really incredible about pre-planning is the fact that the families that I have worked with in pre-planning, they always tell me, you know, I did this because my parents did this, or my family members have done this, and the process went very smooth. So this is really a true gift that you are leaving behind to your loved ones. When we speak about our final wishes, and I do have a final wishes book here for you, and it really ties in with everything that we have been talking about. The final wishes book will ask you questions about your loved ones, about your grandparents, your parents' date of birth, your father's birthday, and so forth. Things that are asked personal questions, but it also is a guide to help you to decide if your pre-planning has really taken place. Do you have your wills in place? Do you have your advance directives in place? And do you have your powers of attorney in place? Those are very, very important, as we have been discussing earlier. As you can see, cemetery planning is organizing one last gift, wrapping it with care, thoughtfulness, and love. Frequently, I hear families that say, you know, this was the best gift that was ever given to us. Our lives are like a book. We write every single chapter, but the last one. So don't let anybody else write your last chapter. Thank you.
Thanks, Mario. So I guess following the script in the continuum of care with my dad, this is kind of where the journey ends. You know, we started off with a diagnosis. We went through how we were going to help him out at home, what we needed to do legally, into, you know, when things progressed into hospice, the funeral, and the cemetery. So now after this, you know, you've been doing so much for so long, trying to take care of this person, and then everything stops. This is really where it's your time to grieve, your time to kind of look back, reflect, and, you know, see how important it is to be present with loved ones and stuff like that. I kind of hope that this presentation brought some things to life, maybe provoked some thought or some actions that may need to take place. Right now, though, we're going to open it up to questions. If you have a question for anyone on the panel, I love it. Just raise your hand. Whatever you say, I'll repeat and I'll pass the microphone off. Is that good? All right, you in the back.
14 years ago, I was taken suddenly critically ill and in a coma on a ventilator, the sickest person at St. Alexius. And my last conscious thought while going into a coma was, I know I have paperwork on this, I hope I made good decisions. And obviously it worked out okay, but I'm still reassessing the paperwork. And I learned there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. How can I possibly think of all the if this, then that, when I don't even know what all the if this are?
Great question. Am I supposed to repeat that? Can everybody hear that? So, okay. Well, I mean for them. Okay, so repeat. So just to recap for the people watching online and stuff like that later, she was saying that 14 years ago she was taken in critical, and her last conscious thought was, I know I've made these decisions. Were the right ones? Where are those decisions? Will people find them? And kind of now, thankfully, she is better. How do I reevaluate those decisions? Is that kind of correct? Who wants to take that? I was going to say that's probably a legal question.
And even frankly, if it's not a legal question, if even it's about like pre-planning for a funeral, did I set the right budget for flowers and prayer cards and all those things? That's where you're relying on the people that you've paid, frankly, to give you advice. And, one of the things, whether you're buying or selling a house or making your estate plan or do anything, the people you're paying, they do that every day. So this is the 1,000th time they've done that. And that's part of what you're paying for, is that experience of saying, hey, I know you're talking about this idea, you're really set on it, I've seen that before, here's how it goes well and here's how it goes poorly. And you can make decisions from there for what fits your situation. When it comes to just generally, finding the documents, things of that nature, it's pretty common, I think, especially like in estate planning world, you have a binder of documents, and practically the binder sticks out, right? So somebody looking through the drawer in the office or whatever will be able to see a binder better than a stack of just white papers, and be able to judge from there. There's also boxes or those folding envelopes where you can put things and have a clear label on it. A lot of this comes down to practicality, and so one of the things that I know a lot of people do is I get calls and we have PDFs, so we email a power of attorney to a nurse's station so that the wife can have authority to make a decision in a key moment. You don't have to keep it in their purse. You can upload things to like MyChart these days and handle it that way too, is when it comes to advanced directives, end of life decision making. You can upload that so the hospital has those on hand. If you want to be really conservative in that regard, you march down to the hospital nearest your house and you go to their billing department and you have them put it on file there. So they scan in the physical thing in, and it'll be guaranteed to be on your file if you go from home in an emergency. Those things are how you handle the practicalities of getting the right documents to the right people and making sure you're the right choices. Now you're shaking your head. So what did I step on? What did I do wrong here?
I know where my documents are.
Yeah.
All my people know where my documents are. But how do I know that I made the right decisions when I don't even know what end-of-life decisions consist of?
So to confirm if you've made the right decisions or not, that's again where you're relying on the professionals that have helped you and all their experience working with clients in similar situations, being able to give you advice on when you may want a ventilator, when you may not, whether to trust the daughter who lives out in California, whether cell phone technology can bridge that geographic gap, or if you feel more comfortable with the son who's down the road, even though the skill set might be a little better with your daughter. Those types of things are where you can work through the professional you're working with.
To kind of, I'll get to you in 1 second, but to kind of go back on that, all these plans that you have in place, they can be changed, so I think when I kind of did my trust, wills, documents, they told me you should revisit this in 5 years. I put an alert in my phone. I'll probably have like 3 phones by then, but it's just something that you have to keep revisiting. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I remember back in the
old days, you had to be of sound mind and body to have a will. Now, if someone's been diagnosed with aphasia or dementia, can they still make a will?
So the question was,
Did you want to add something before we move on to the?
I did.
Okay.
But I
Can-
can wait till you're.
we'll answer this one.
Yeah.
So the question was, if you're making wills, do you have to be of sound mind and body?
Yes, but what does that mean is really what's coming down to. Each legal document has its own capacity requirements. From very high, a will is among the highest, where you have to really understand not only your time and place and be oriented and that kind of thing, but also know the value of money and your actions and the implications of that. So that's a pretty high standard. But a diagnosis is not a tipping point. A diagnosis for me, one of the first things I did as an attorney was research a book. It's called Alzheimer's and the Law. It was a handbook for attorneys. It's not a book you want to read, but how to deal with clients with capacity issues. And in that, we find, we're not doctors. We're not here to make determinations of that insight, but we do have a responsibility to make sure our things hold. So it's really about knowing what each document has. Like a power of attorney document, for example, one of the most crucial pieces, I cover that you essentially need to just know that you're trusting the person you're naming. And then you can let that person make all these other big choices. They can't sign a will for you, but they can sign a trust.
Because the person I'm talking about is older than I am, and they don't have a will.
Yeah, so, but you can get a trust signed by a power of attorney. They can execute, if the power of attorney is drafted correctly, they can execute a trust for you. So you're really trusting these people to make big decisions, and you have a lower capacity level for that document than you do a will or a trust.
Do they have a power of attorney in place?
Do they have a power of attorney in place? If not, I've gone to places, it's just, I have to make gut decisions about how that person's doing that day, at that time, really at that minute that we're signing it. Do they understand what they're signing? Do they understand they're trusting this person to make key decisions? And that's a lower threshold than having to figure out if they understand the value of money and, implications on family dynamics and all that.
Well, 1 second before we move on. Do you
I
have?
just wanted to add an answer about how do I know what to decide?
Okay.
Because there's a great
There you go.
resource. Hi, if you're unsure what, like, medical decisions, what they mean, or what your loved one would want if they don't have a healthcare power of attorney, there's a really great resource called the Conversation Project. And if this is connected to the internet, maybe we could go there. But it's a nonprofit organization that has all different kinds of workbooks that you can download that help you figure out what is important to you and what healthcare decisions you'd want for yourself. And in the absence of your loved one having those documents, it can help you kind of figure out how to make a decision on their behalf when they don't have something in writing. So it's theconversationproject.org.
I know we had a question back here first. Yep.
Sound mind, when you make your power of attorney for someone, and now the person you make is a power of attorney, you trust them. But what happens, can they ever change your wishes going down the road? If they reach the point, or you reach the point where they have to do it, take care of you, make your decisions for you. Can they change your beneficiaries or any of those important documents once they get power of attorney and you get a little dementia?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so the question is, can your power of attorney change beneficiaries? Can they do things down the road? I thought you had a hint of, can they go against your wishes, kind of wrapped in that. The answer to that, no, there's really serious liability. If I'm your power of attorney and I say, you know what she'd want? She'd want me to go to Cancun. That would be a stretch. I would need that documented and notarized probably before I do that. But if we're talking and you say, I have a grandnephew and I really want his college fund to be funded, I can call up your financial advisor and say, hey, we need to put 10% down for little Johnny now. We could do that if that specific example, you need to have the exact power listed as an extra power in your power of attorney now.
But the question is, what if the person that owns the policy is
Yeah.
in dementia now, like this
Oh, okay. So the question kind of is, how does your power of attorney know it's you and not the dementia version of you? Is that where we're getting at? Yes. Okay, so that's really where it comes down to picking the person you know. I've had extreme examples. I had a family of a client call into our office years ago, and their mom was writing checks to some, frankly, a boyfriend out of state. Motivations never change. Let's just cover that. And they're concerned she was getting scammed. And we had her in our office. We talked with her. And frankly, she knew exactly what was going on. She just liked the companionship. So there was nothing to do. That's it. She was making the choice. So if in that example, yeah, she didn't have dementia, but she was just making a choice I don't think really many people would make, but she was like, this is what I want. I like the phone calls. I like the emails that are going on. And that's the choice she was making with good sound mind.
Yes. Oh, I'm just gonna
yeah,
leave
go,
it here.
okay.
And the question is, if I passed away, I got a lot of donated, but anyway, if I die, I was gonna tell him to leave it to my daughter. Now, does he have to change his will and put my daughter in there? Or can I go to the county and say, just to make it legal, that if something happened to me, then the house would go to my daughter?
So the question is about getting a house to the daughter. Can you use the will or your daughter, yeah.
Under his last name.
Yeah, oh, somebody else. So if his will,
He has dowry and his
Yep.
brother is a power of attorney.
Right.
That's the other question. If he died.
can I handle the first one? Can I handle the first question first? Because there's a lot going on already, so I don't want to confuse myself and then confuse everybody.
Could we go to the court and say, and make that legal, if he just write the note saying, if anything happens to me and I die, his house would go to my daughter. Could we do that at the court and say?
So the way you could do it, if his will just had things going to your, like, let's say she was the only beneficiary of his will, the house would be part of that. So that'd be covered by if she's a beneficiary of that will. If she's a 50% beneficiary of the will, maybe the house is, she might have to settle out with, buying out a share of the other 50% person if the house is more than half. You can go to the county and record what's called a transfer on death instrument. It's like a beneficiary designation for a house. It's recorded with the county. You could make a new will, or you could do this transfer on death instrument. The transfer on death instrument is recorded, and there are some things you have to do pretty quickly after death in order to still avoid probate and having to go to court, which is something I don't like. I don't like ifs. I don't like things having to happen to make it work. But if it's a last minute solution or something you don't want to do a trust or pay for a trust, frankly, it's a solution that's out there. It's called a transfer on death instrument.
Well, there's a couple other questions. We'll come back. Yeah. Can we come to you in the back? So the question is, if you're cremated, what are your options for burial? So there's a couple different options. You can bury ashes in a Catholic or any type of cemetery. A lot of cemeteries have cremation graves. Cremation graves are just smaller graves in ground. You can go in what's called a niche, which is, you guys see the walls. A niche is like a spot in the wall that the urn would go into. If you go into the wall, you could do a single niche or a companion niche. And each cemetery has different options there. A lot of people also ask if they're going to be cremated and maybe a family member is going to be scattering the ashes, do you still need an urn? No, because then otherwise you're going to scatter the ashes, you're going to have this urn that you don't know what to do with. So I would say if you're going to scatter the ashes, there's no need to kind of purchase anything.
You can also have your cremated remains turned into a diamond. There's a company called Life Gem. I've had a couple of families do that.
Leave it for Kristen to talk about diamonds right now. But yeah, so Kristen, you want to talk about it?
Oh, no, I just wanted to interject. There's other options besides burial. You don't have to bury, you can scatter. Like I said, you can have your cremated remains made into a diamond. a paperweight, they have blown glass now, you can have your cremated
Jewelry,
remains.
basically whatever you guys can possibly think of,
It's been thought of.
they've thought of.
Yes.
In the back. Hey.
Yes.
So the question is, could you split the ashes? Yes, of course. There's, people might want to take the ashes to the lake house and scatter half of them. Some family wants to keep some here. They might want to bury them. You could really do whatever you want. A lot of times people get little keepsakes, of their loved one and stuff like that. Hard no over here. But yeah.
Say though, the Catholic Church is very specific. If you're Catholic and you're a devout Catholic, the Catholic Church says that the cremated remains should be left together for the resurrection. I've had lots of families that are Catholic that still have buried some of the cremated remains and they've given their kids another portion. But the Catholic Church is kind of encouraging us to keep those cremated remains together and bury them for that resurrection. Oh.
Happened recently where a husband wanted to remain and the sister wanted to remain. And they thought about it. They're like,
Right of disposition?
Yeah.
Probably explain
So
that.
it would just basically go with who has the right of disposition, who's the next of kin. So in a situation like that, if the person's married, the spouse they're the next of kin, they have determination what they want to do with that. You typically don't.
Yeah, put it in, that's one area where like a 5 wishes document that's over there, or sometimes in the binders for estate planning, you can put, so it's in your handwriting, right? This is who I want to have these. And that would settle most reasonable people to say, all right, I'll back off if that's not my name sitting there. We can't control for all human beings in that, but that's also a good practical way of putting it in something like a 5 wishes or the end of life preparation documents that you'll get from some of these professionals.
Can I speak with that?
Okay.
Okay, you're talking about cremated remains, separating cremated remains and probably having those little keepsake urns that most people have. I recently had a lady that had 39 small keepsake urns.
For cats?
Oh, no, human cremains. Okay, now she was in the process of making her own selection and trying to get everything organized for her end of life. Okay, so now what is she gonna do with that? So whatever you decide that you want to do, okay, just think of the consequences down the road. Okay, we do have a lot of options for cremated remains, but you wanna do it with dignity.
Thank you. Right here first.
Yes, I was getting back to this gentleman. What if you find that you are, over time, you've lost all your relatives,
Yeah.
you find that you're the only child left of family?
Yeah, so the question is, what do you do if you're the only one left? The last survivor. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'll be, I just heard the word charity. That could be a good thing. So let me give you the full picture here before giving by like personal what I would do. People come to me all the time and say, well, I just want my stuff not to go to the state of Illinois, right? Yeah, we all understand why. But that's the situation where it would. If there's no descendants, no spouse, no kids, no nobody, that's the one situation. That kind of sentiment I think is overblown and overused to sell stuff. But that does happen in this instance where you're the only one. It's called sheets to the state. It's like the word sheet with ES before it. Sheets to the state. That's what happens if you do nothing. So the best way is, in an estate planning document, like a will or a trust, you'd name a charity, a group of charities. You can also have default language, just find my next of kin. So that would be like very far remote situation where my great aunt Bertha died in Munich and now I get $10 because there's 30,000 sixth cousins or whatever it is. Like that, those are those situations. Like, so you can put catch-all language like that, either to charity or just say, find whoever it is on ancestry.com or whatever the equivalent might be. You can do that.
To the church.
Give it to me.
Church, yeah,
I got
church.
5 kids in college.
Yeah, we'll give our business cards all out back there so you can include whoever you want.
There's a question over here.
Quick question, my mom was in hospice for 2 years. So I always thought, and my wife thought, that hospice was 6 months. What actually is the rule for hospice? Is it not being able to do the certain functions of daily living? Or, I mean, the 6 months comes out, everybody thinks 6 months and it's a, a sense of death. And, my mom lived for over 2 years. So what actually are the rules for getting into hospice?
Could you repeat your question?
Sure. So the rules of getting into hospice is usually the 6 months is what the doctors will term a patient has left of life. But we cannot, everybody is not the same. Some people do better on hospice. Some people get stronger on hospice. Sometimes we wonder if it is due to just more care, more eyes-on, people coming into the home. Also, there's times where we do eliminate some of the medications that may have side effects. So we do not know. Doctors go in it thinking that this is what the patient has left, but there isn't always a solution to that as it's a 6 month or less. It's not. I have patients on for 2 years now. So, and then if a patient does get better, we have to reevaluate. And if they're getting better, we have to take them off of hospice.
So is it more a terminal illness as opposed to a length of time? Like my mom had congestive heart failure, and I think that's what.
Yes, yes. So it's different. So every terminal illness, obviously with terminal cancer, that can go fairly quickly. Patients with dementia, end stages of dementia, they can hang on for a while depending on, with dysphagia, are they able to swallow and eat anymore? If they're not, then they are, deemed where usually within 2 weeks, they won't be with us any longer. So, but every diagnosis is different. I feel, yes, it is. But I think that doctors do that evaluation, and during that time they do that evaluation, they're using their best judgment.
If I could just add to that too, my dad had CHF, so he had congestive heart failure. He was on hospice for 2 years. And just to add on to what Kelly's saying, because we work a lot with hospice companies, sometimes some of the qualifiers are they've lost weight. They will reevaluate them every 6 months. So technically it's 6 months or less, but like Kelly said, we took him off, he had AFib, and so we took him off his Coumadin. So it was a, blood thinner, and I thought, oh God, we're gonna kill my dad, he's gonna die tomorrow. No, the quality of his life actually improved because of the team that came, but that he was off all those medications. So every 6 months, Medicare, because of the insurance, will come and evaluate. And so he actually graduated from it, and then he was able to come back on eventually. But yeah, I think there's a lot of myths out there and a lot of fear-based. People think, oh, I'm going to go on hospice and I'm signing the death certificate. I myself, doing this for 20 years, was signing away, thinking, oh God, I'm killing my dad. When no, there's just so many myths out there, and it's the most plentiful Medicaid benefit and the most underused, because typically people don't put their loved ones on it for that very reason. But it's a great benefit, and it just, it has more benefits than it does negatives. So I just wanted to add that.
I second that.
Oh, wow.
We had an unbelievably good experience.
That's awesome. Good.
We're gonna start back here.
It may have been answered already in the conversation, I missed it. Talking about cremation of the ashes, what if I don't want to make them into a diamond or give them? And I don't want to buy a plot, can I just like to keep them?
Can you what? Can you? Yeah, so the question was, with cremation and ashes, she doesn't want to be a diamond, what are the other options? There's a bunch. Yeah, you can leave them to anybody who you want. They can do whatever they want. I just had a family come in the other day. This gentleman's sister passed away, and I said, okay, I'll give you a call when we have the death certificates and the ashes. And he goes, Ross, I want you to scatter them. So we filled out a document that he's relinquishing rights of the ashes for us to spread them, in a dignified, manner for his sister. He just didn't want to have anything to do with it.
Hi, so the only thing I want to add to that is just, also kind of thinking of that would be the long term, right? So sometimes we do have folks who reach out and say, I've had these ashes for years and years and years, and I just don't know what to do with them anymore. So that would be my only thing, is that if you're thinking of it for yourself too, giving them to somebody to take care for and look after for X amount of years, but also think about after that as well, just a little bit of direction for them, just so they're not lost years down the road.
We're gonna do 2 more questions and then move on into the wrap.
Okay. 2 seconds on kind of to follow up with that. This happened about 6 months ago. You know, you might get your ashes back, or somebody might, your son or daughter might get the ashes back. They don't know what to do with them. Maybe they didn't get an urn. They're just in the box that the ashes come back in. Well, a lot of times you don't know what to do with that. You put it in the closet. People move. We had it not too long ago where we got a call from Salvation Army. Person went through the closet. They put a bunch of stuff in a bag and stuff like that. And sure enough, it said the person's name and it said Marizzo Funeral Home on it. So they called us and they're like, this is John at Salvation Army. We just got these ashes, you know? So we contacted the family and they're like, oh my gosh, like, we were cleaning out the closet, we just moved. I couldn't find them after the move. I thought that they were in another box, blah, blah, blah. So just be cognizant of who you kind of put in charge of that. No, not yet. We had a question right here.
It's not a question, it's just a comment on advanced planning. I lost my mother and aunt at 93 and 101, who had made advanced plans and felt that everything was taken care of. And then I dealt with the church that did the memorial service, and there was a hard sell then for organist, choir, soloist, altar boys, how to handle the flowers that you ordered for them. It was just like a hard sell, and it was unpleasant for me, but it upset my sister.
So she was saying that, her mom kind of did advanced planning, planned for everything except for the church.
Yes, and it was a hard sell to make a few bucks.
Okay.
Very unpleasant.
So she was saying, there was a lot of unexpected fees at the church that they weren't aware of. Unfortunately, this kind of goes through, I'm being nice. This kind of goes through what we were talking about earlier. There's always going to be, prices kind of keep going up. I mean, from the start of COVID till now, I'm sure, I'm looking at you, Stephanie, there's a lot of churches, their fees may have doubled, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, it is what it is with the church. Some churches now, they say you can't have a eulogy at church. Every church is different. So some churches where their stipend might be $900, some of them might be $200. So it all depends on the church that you're a part of.
Can I add that?
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of advanced prepaid funeral policies. Personally, professionally, they've come in really handy. But as a lawyer, there's 2 things you're paying for in the pre-planning. There's goods and there's services. And I might be speaking out of turn, but it's the goods are locked in. You're locked in on the goods, but not the
Depending on-
services?
Most funeral homes are guaranteeing their goods.
Yeah.
And that's something to pay attention when you do your advanced
But do you wanna-
planning.
You want to take it from
Sure.
there? Yeah.
Thanks. So most funeral homes today are guaranteeing their goods. That means that any of the services or goods that you purchase through the funeral home are guaranteed at today's pricing. So if you pay for it today, whether you make payments over time, or if it's a full single pay, those items are guaranteed. It's the cash advance items, like your luncheon. I could suggest that you put $1,000 aside for a luncheon, and at time of need, your luncheon is $1,500. If there's a shortfall, then the family at time of need would have to, or whoever your survivors are, would have to pay that difference. So some of the planning, especially on the cash advances, those things that we can't guarantee, which are outside vendors, like I said, the luncheon, or if we had a newspaper, I can't tell the newspaper they can't change their prices. We can certainly plan for what a newspaper notice would look like. Most of your policies do gain interest. So in the event that some of those costs on the cash advances go up over time, that interest that's accruing can help offset those increases.
Again, we've talked about this a little bit throughout the day. Revisit your will, revisit your pre-plan. You can always give us a call and say, hey, I did my pre-planning 5 years ago. I put $1,000 aside for luncheon. Do you think that's enough? I can pull out your policy and I can say, well, you've picked the most expensive restaurant. Those prices have gone up. You might want to add another $500. The beauty of advanced planning is you can make plans until you can't. So you can always call us. We can always add to it. If it's irrevocably assigned, once it's irrevocably assigned, that means that no one can touch those funds. That money is set aside, it's sheltered, so the state can't touch it. Therefore, we can't pull any money out of the account if it's irrevocably assigned. And I have been doing this since 1995. I have yet to have a family that wants to ever pull money out of their prearrangement. They're typically putting money in to shelter it. Does that answer the question?
Can I add something to that? Okay, as far as cemetery services go, as far as the cost, one of the things that you have to be cognizant of is that costs increase every single year. Our fiscal year end is June 30th. July 1st, we have a price increase of anywhere from 4 to 7%. This last couple of years, prices, I had a family that came in, they did not finish paying for their selection. We took it back. 2 years, almost to the day, the son calls me and he tells me his mother passed away and he wanted to have the same grave. So we couldn't find the same graves. We found graves that were not too far from the original selection. He ended up paying $2,000 more per grave and for the services for 4 graves. And that's at a time of need. Now, when you're purchasing something with Catholic cemeteries, the reason that it goes up all the time is because of the perpetual care. We have 47 cemeteries in the Archdiocese. We have 15 offices. We have about 2.3 million people buried in our cemeteries. On an average year, we have anywhere from 18 to 22,000 burials. Now, we have to maintain those grounds for perpetuity, and how do you come up with that number? Okay, you can't. So that's why you have those price increases. Whenever you make a selection with us, you lock in your cemetery cost. We give you up to 72 months to pay for it. We do not charge any interest, any prepayment penalties, or any late fees. We don't even pull your credit, okay? If you skip on your payment, guess who's knocking? It's me, cemetery boy, okay? I will call you, and you know what? We will work with you. And we will put you on a 6-month reprieve in order for you to catch up on whatever bills you need to do. But you know what? You at least have something there. So that is the benefit of pre-planning.
So kind of going on that, and then we're going to be pulling some prizes. Also, one thing that we kind of touched on, but kind of, I think, is a little bit of gray area. With any prepaid contract, again, it's irrevocably assigned, it's guaranteed, but it's also transferable. So that means, let's say down the road, you're like, I can't do, like, no more winters, I'm going to Florida. Fully transferable over there too. So it's a policy that goes with you. It's not like it's something that's only used here or at the funeral home that wrote the policy. It's a fully transferable policy.
Can I just add one real quick story on that? So my personal experience on the importance of transferability, when my dad passed, we got back from the hospital, you know, as you do. My mom called the funeral home they bought it through. The wrong person answered the phone. And she told my mom, this was on speakerphone, so I know it's true, we're busy today, you're gonna have to call back tomorrow.
It wasn't by us.
I knew I recognized your voice. No, but yeah, how about the wrong answer, right? So my mom, she's a smart lady, like, but it's a tough time. So she's like, I didn't leave him out on the curb, what was gonna happen? We were able to call the funeral home down the street. They called us when they had him back at the facility, right? All that stuff. So, but talk about a situation if we were locked into that funeral home through a bad contract, it would have been a nightmare, right? So transferably, great thing.
All right. Well, on behalf of the panel, just want to say thank you guys for all the questions, for your attendance, everything. If you guys have any more questions for us, everybody is going to be sticking around afterwards. There's also a lot of literature, cards, reading material and stuff over there for you. So anything you guys need, just let us know. But thanks again for coming.
Thank you. Let's hear it for the panel. That was really, really awesome.